All right, we are alive. Welcome back to AJC and the Web Devs with one of my favorite people to stream with, Nikki T. What's up, man?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, doing good. You were one of the first guests on this stream back on like episode 4 or something when you were working at Netlify. There was we
Okay,
talked
yeah.
about SSR and Astro and stuff, I think, or just SSR.
Okay, yeah, man. It's been a minute. That
I
was probably
know,
in
about 2 years
2022.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. So how you been? How was I don't think I caught up with you since the holidays. But
Yeah, I'm doing good. You've kind of seen me building out Auto Show now. I've done 3 streams on your channel about it, and it's at the point now where I'm like putting together the payment system and login and about to ship the sucker. So that's pretty sweet. And still doing
nice.
some content for Semaphore and getting back into the fold with Dash. I'm actually trying to get Dash to sponsor Auto Show for me to build in like a cryptocurrency payment
Okay,
option. So that could be pretty interesting. But
nice.
yeah, not really much has changed since the last time we talked, honestly.
Okay, cool.
But you
Yeah,
have a new job now.
yeah. A few things changed for me. So, yeah. So basically, I was working at Open Sauce, which was awesome. My team's awesome over there. We got acquired by the Linux Foundation, which is awesome too.
And they just
Unfortunately,
took Becca, no one else. Is that what happened?
well, most of the engineering team didn't make it over there, which it is what it is. It was these things happen during acquisitions. So no bad blood or
You were
anything, but
eminently hireable though.
yeah. So like obviously I was a little bummed out about it, but put the word out there that I was looking for some new challenges, and uh, definitely got to give a big shout out to my network because people reached out, including Pomerium, where I'm at now. And yeah, so one of the VP of engineering over there is ex Netlify, where I used to work,
Oh,
and
okay.
just reached out. And like, so for full context, like I've been full-time engineering pretty much my entire career. But like every time I live stream and I have a guest on that is a DevRel, they're like, "Oh, I thought you were DevRel."
I've
So
said this. I've said this a bunch of times to you.
yeah. So this it was kind of a funny process, but like I was interviewing for full stack roles, front end roles, and uh, entertaining DevRel roles too. And then for Pomerium, it was super interesting because um, RJ, who's the VP of engineering over there, was like, "We're looking for a product engineer, maybe." So like, had a chat with him and spoke to a couple people, and then they were like, "We don't really have an interview process for that because like they're predominantly back end devs.
Mhm.
There's a front end over there as well, but so they're like, I don't really know what to give you for a test. So like basically, I ended up doing the back end engineer exam test, which I did pretty decent at considering I don't write Go daily, and the core of the product is a reverse proxy. So like basically I enjoyed it, but I knew I wouldn't finish everything. But I tried to focus on like the core of the interview test. That went well, and then had some conversations. Like, uh, spoke to a back end engineer after, just talking about the test and the interview, and just chatted about some other things. And then uh, we've got a lot of ambitious goals for like Q1, and like I think RJ was like, might not be setting you up for the best success because like there's just we're gonna be moving super fast. And I'm like, even though like I'm totally fine being thrown into the unknown, I think it was more like the ramp up and stuff might have really deterred from like a Q1 kind of goal,
Yeah,
maybe.
and we'll also talk about this later, but as a security company, you can't there's a little bit less move fast and break things, I would guess.
Yeah, that too. But and he had mentioned this kind of at the beginning, like, oh, we're also looking for a DevRel, and then so like, it was just kind of funny. It's like there's good news and bad news, and so it's like he's like probably the back end role, because like it was kind of maybe going to be product engineer or back endish role. But he's like, yeah, that's the bad news. Like I was mentioning about the Q1, and they've got a like really ambitious in a good way Q1. So, but he was like, there's that rel role I talked to you about before. So kind of just started having a conversation with my now manager, Nikhil, and uh, you know, it definitely sounded interesting, and like it's kind of a bit out of my wheelhouse in the sense that like I've traditionally been an application developer,
Mhm.
so like yeah, I did a bunch of .NET in the day, and then more recently in like the past 8 years, it's been more like full stack JavaScript, and in some cases full front end, depending on the role. So I'm kind of being thrown into like our product, which is essentially it uses zero trust principles, which we can get into if you want. But essentially, like the core of it, it's a reverse proxy. It's the whole security gamut.
Starts with all the doors are locked for everybody, and then you start by giving individual people's individual keys for individual doors. That's how I would explain zero trust.
So it's you know there's definitely a bit of a learning curve. Like I've been ramping up. I'm literally only at, like I was saying before the stream,
This
this
is
is
probably good
literally
though,
oh
because
yeah, no, I'm
I
enjoying
was
it.
gonna say, because you're a very experienced dev who is in kind of a different space, so you're the type of person that they're gonna want, like, going through their docs and letting them know whether it makes sense or not, because you'll find the rough spots that someone who is really into security maybe would just kind of blow through.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And like I'm still figuring out my schedule work wise, like is today the day I focus on docs, or like today's video creation day and stuff. But I have been going through the docs and stuff, and like, they to be transparent, they definitely do need some work, but like there's stuff like I want it to be able to, like, somebody who's like, even if they work in security already, or like infra or platform engineering, still want them to be able to come in and like, here's the code example to start something up. It should just work. And so like there was things to get like Pomerium running in Docker up, where I figured out, okay, it's not taking the config file to start Docker. It was just showing an example of the Pomerium image, but just outputting like the version of the software. And so so I got blocked right away because I was trying to set it up locally. So I just made it more explicit. Like, you pass in the config, this is literally how it looks, and then I link to where the config is if you need to like configure it and stuff. And just kind of like, you know, not like explain it like I'm five, but really just be explicit and make sure that things just work if you copy them or whatever. So, and that's something that'll just be ongoing, I think, just because docs, there's a lot of docs for one, and as your product evolves, everything else evolves. So yeah, there's stuff like that too. I do think having one, because I'm new there's the fresh set of eyes on something for sure. But also to your point, like I feel like there's stuff that maybe as a back end dev or something, you might be just used to these things. So, and I'm like it's not, I definitely understand so far what I've been digging into, but it's like I think just being more explicit about things is always better, or even over communicating it in the docs is better than like less docs. But anyways, that's not a knock on the team. That's just like, I think anywhere I've worked, docs could always use improvements. So it's, and these are things that are part of my role now, anyways. So I don't know. I'm just excited about it because I also, like, career wise, I think it's just interesting to branch out as well. Like, I
Mhm.
don't, if I end up moving on somewhere else at some point, it's not like this experience would have been a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, and it's definitely different because it's a security space, like you're saying. And, but also, I don't know. I'm just pretty excited about it. And the team's been really welcoming, and like, I've got a good crew on my immediate team and stuff. I guess the only thing that's different, and it's not a bad thing, is I'm under marketing. So I'm like, and I know DevRel have opinions about like where they are in the org, but being under marketing doesn't bother me. That's not what I mean. It's more like I think it'll actually be helpful for me to understand a bit more about the business side of things, you know?
Mhm.
So all that to say is
Yeah,
I'm super pumped.
the question was always, should DevRel be in marketing or engineering or product? Because you can kind of make a case for it being in a little bit of all of them. So
Yeah.
when I did DevRel for StepZen, it was a 10-person startup. So none of that even existed. There was really no departments. I guess I was kind of under the person who was like who would have been like the marketing department, but it wasn't
Okay. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
a fully built out marketing department. And then at QuickNode, I was under product, and that was cool because like the product was very meaty, so I had a lot to get into there, and they were
Yeah.
a type of company that didn't want to be really like markety. They wanted to just kind of like speak to engineers really, but
Okay.
I think DevRel people, they kind of have a chip on their shoulder about not being marketing, and I think that's the wrong way to think about it. I think it's a multidisciplinary role that includes a chunk of marketing, and like you shouldn't see
Yeah.
that as like a bad thing that you're like too good to do.
Oh yeah. No, like I said, I'm not phased that I'm under marketing. It's more just there's just some things I need to learn. That's all, you know.
Mhm.
But I've got a cool crew. So like we're a small company. So like my team is me, and then I work with Unji, who does a lot of blog content and like just managing things, and she runs most of the, so we share the socials a bit, but like she's been doing a lot of stuff. I honestly still don't know all the things she does because I'm still like this is like literally week 3, but she's doing a lot of great work. And then it's my manager Nikhil. So like we're like a small mighty crew. And then I think for me the thing, to your point, what you're saying about having been full-time engineering for quite a long time, is our product is definitely super technical. You know what I mean? It's not like
Mhm.
you know, although I'm a big fan of Netlify, or if you're using something like Vercel, it's not like one-click deployment kind of stuff. It's really at layer 7 in terms of like your infra, and you're going to be deploying this. It's not a pass. You're like, this is you managing these things, right? So it's just different, and because of that, uh you do, like, I think anybody, like if we end up getting other DevRel, they're gonna have to be super technical as well. And I don't know, I'm just finding it interesting, and I'm still, like I said, week 3 only, but I'm just digging into stuff, asking questions, because it's the classic thing when people have been working on something for a long time, they know how it works, or like, oh yeah, that quirk, whatever. So I'm just hopefully asking good
Yeah,
questions.
let's
And
get real simple with it. So who would use this and why, and like what would they build with it?
yeah, yeah. So the TLDR, so the product and the company, it's called Pomerium. It's an open source project. It got started by our CEO, Bobby, who's big fan of open source, been in the security space for a while. But who would use this is essentially, it's probably going to be a company that wants to safeguard their internal apps. So like anybody that's traditionally used like a VPN, like when I worked at Autodesk, for example, it's a
Mhm.
huge company. If I ever worked from home, I would have to log in to my VPN so I
Yeah,
could,
Edgio had a VPN too. Yeah.
yeah, and that works, but there's problems with that though. This is what we would term like the old security model, and this is called perimeter based security. So essentially, when you log in with a VPN, you're getting access to that network, but once you're in, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like if you made it over the wall, or you got into the bar
Yeah,
with
yeah,
fake
free reign
ID.
in the city.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
you're in now. Like, okay, I'm in the bar, or I made it over the wall, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, Nick, yeah, he must be legit. He's in here.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's really just kind of like a one-time check, and then you're considered golden. And that can be dangerous because once you're in and they assume you're trusted, you can potentially do nefarious things because you're not being constantly verified.
Yeah.
Whereas, and there's a couple other problems with this too. So like if you're using a VPN, like I'll use the example of Autodesk because I literally work there, but there's like 60,000 employees. That means if like say 60,000 of those people work from home at some point, they have to connect with a VPN. And hey, what's up, B1 Mine? Good to see you, my man.
Hey man, good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so like the thing is, there's actually an IT burden to this as well. Like picture like an admin who of like Autodesk. He's, what happens if like one of the employees who aren't on the IT staff or aren't like devs there, they're just like, my VPN isn't working. What do I do? You're all of a sudden supporting like, are you on the right version of the VPN client, or like there's an installation issue on Windows or Mac, like, there could be a ton of things. And so there's that burden of maintaining, in this case, like potentially 60,000 users having issues with a client. So there still is an IT burden with like for your company with something like Pomerium or like zero trust principles. But the difference is
It's people
you're not,
contacting people to get access all the time.
well, well, that potentially, but you get provisioned roles and like access. But it's more like you don't have to worry about all these people who potentially have issues with a client trying to get into the network. What happens is you have Pomerium, which is a few things. It's called an identity aware proxy that is continually verifying who you are and like what you can do. And this is the first thing you hit before you even hit your internal network. So you could be like, okay, Nick's on call. He needs to access prod because he's on call and maybe something goes down in prod. He's gonna have to look at the DB, or I don't know, hop into the Kubernetes prod cluster and see what's going on. They'll verify that it's me. They'll verify like potentially like, is Nick on his work computer? Because you can check your device as well. But it could also be like, does Nick have the on-call role right now? Because like you only get access to prod if you're, on call. And it'll be like, okay, Nick's on call. So at that point, I can get into the internal network. And anytime I do that, like literally the next request of me doing that again, it's going to do the same thing. And we'll talk about latency and stuff in a sec. But basically, you're literally guarding your entire internal network. It's not the same thing as like, I can actually hit the prod, but I can't log into it. This is literally like you can't even get to prod.
Right. How similar is this to AWS IAM, identity and access management? This sounds like it's similar in the terms of like defining roles and being based around identity.
Yeah. So to be clear, I haven't really worked with AWS because, like I was saying, I'm like more kind of just getting into the space now. But
without figuring out IAM, the first thing you have to do when you do anything on the freaking network is to like first you gotta create a role and this whole role. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that said, I've actually worked on a custom single sign-on, and like I'm aware of like claims and your identity and stuff. But in that particular case, like that IAM is identity access management, like you said, that's verifying, are you like Anthony or are you Nick? And that's one aspect of zero trust. So it's like I said, it's an identity aware proxy. So like the first part is like, when you try to access something, it's going to be like, okay, you're not logged in. So let me redirect you to the identity provider. So that could be, like classic stuff like Google, GitHub, Azure, Active Directory, whatever it is, could be your own homegrown one. But basically, that's the first part. And I think that's the part you're referring to, which is IAM, because this is, it's really just your identity. And yes, you might get some roles in there, but that's literally the only one part of it. So the zero trust and like with Pomerium is, okay, you've been identified that you're so-and-so now, but we also have policies in place. So like once you're logged in, it'll go like, okay, so Nick's email is nick@nickit.co. Let's see what policies apply to that. So it'll be like, okay, he's not on call, so like he doesn't get the he doesn't get the on call role, and so like I can't even get into the production cluster because of that. Like it's not even a question of like, because like for example, in the case of a VPN, you'd already be in the network and I could go to the production cluster potentially, but I wouldn't be able to log in, but I can still actually hit the machine. You know what I mean? This is literally because like it's a reverse proxy happening at that layer 7 level. So it's like, if you don't get the keys to go in, like you're literally not even hitting the network. Although from like a user standpoint, it might look like, oh, I just can't hit prod, right? But like from a network standpoint, there's a clear barrier. You're hitting an initial roadblock, which is the reverse proxy and the identity aware proxy. Hey, what's up, Fuzzy? Good to see you. So, and again, I'm still learning about a lot of this, but that's kind
that
of
made
the
sense. Yeah, no, that definitely made sense. I think when we see you like kind of spin something up, it'll help make it a little more concrete. But
yeah,
yeah, that seems like a
yeah,
perfectly logical thing because everyone is so concerned about security, or some
yeah,
people
for
are
sure.
less concerned about security, and those are the people who get owned. So it's just such a massive space of technology and strategies, and a lot of it is like based on decades of kind of you
Yeah.
know different stuff. So two legends, we're legends. Yeah, we are.
Thanks, Fuzzy. I still got to make my way to Scotland. For context, that's where Fuzzy is. But yeah, and so like I was saying, so like Pomerium or like zero trust stuff is typically at, well, not typically, I think it's always at layer 7, and the reason for that is like you can actually dictate what those incoming requests are going to do. And a VPN, for example, using perimeter-based security is at a lower layer. So it's at like, I not positive, it's either layer 3 or layer 4. But basically at that point, like you can't do anything in terms of like managing policies or context.
Yeah, and that's what
Like
Fuzzy's
at
saying here.
yeah,
Policy-based access control is the term
yeah.
he's using to describe it. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a whole policy thing too that takes part of this. And this is the thing I was saying before, like, okay, I can create a policy where Nick gets the on-call role because he logged in and maybe the identity provider said, oh, thumbs up. I've got that. I got to turn off those
Just the
reactions.
reactions. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I think
yeah. Let
Edge
me turn
has them
that
turned
off.
off automatically, which is nice. But
Okay.
I know you said you don't know a lot about it, but IAM does give you like 7 different kinds of like policy stuff. So you should like kind
Yeah.
of take a look at it just because you're probably gonna get asked about it a lot in comparison to your tool. That's what I would guess.
Yeah, no, like, yeah, definitely with because I have worked, like I said, with on maintaining a single sign-on custom project. But so you'll get your claims when you log in and stuff, and it'll say like, this is your email, these are roles you have, like for sure there. But like, picture something like maybe it gets wired up to like, I don't know, pager duty. So I go on call and pager duty, and maybe that kicks off something that assigns me that role. So when I log in, I'm an on-call person now. And then basically there'll be that policy there that says only people for prod are in our domain or like certain
So it's
criteria
like the
plus
bouncer at the
on call.
door with the list.
It literally is. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a good way to think of it.
Mhm.
And I actually dropped a video short today, basically using an airport as an analogy. And if you want to check that
Good
out, but
TSA.
yeah. Yeah, well, it's more than just the initial TSA. It's like you're constantly verified everywhere, right? Like
Mhm.
you first get in, like say you don't have your boarding pass yet. You're going to go to the ticket booth, you're going to say, "Here's my passport. Thanks for my boarding pass," or you use the machine, whatever. Then you're going to go through security. They're going to ask you for your boarding pass and ID again. You're going to have bags potentially, so think of that as literally like your devices that you would use to do things. And they're going to check that, and you're either good or you're not. You go through. if you go to the gate, you can't just walk in. They're going to say, "Can I see your passport and your boarding pass?" So there's this literal constant verification wherever you go in secure areas of an airport. And so I think it's a really good analogy for this kind of stuff. And you could even go like further. I only had 60 seconds of this short, but like imagine like you're a frequent flyer and like, I'm going to go crash in the VIP lounge, you can't get in there unless you have your VIP card, you know what I mean? And it's, again, you're being verified once again, so I think it's kind of good to look at stuff in the physical world because, I think people can relate to it a lot better. Cause like when you start talking about, identity aware proxy, IDPs and stuff, you might lose some people initially, whereas if you say like, it's exactly like if you're at the airport, people might be like, oh, okay, I get it. And getting back to the VPN, think of the VPN as like you get to the airport, you go past some initial security screening, they don't even check your bags, and then you're like, you can do whatever you want.
Hop in the Copilot and be like, hey, I'm in the cockpit.
Yeah. You just go up to the flight attendant. Yeah, I'm Nick. I'm the pilot today. They'd be like, okay, sure. And like, obviously that sounds like a ridiculous thing. And I think that's what helps convey that example too. Like it would be bananas if anybody could just walk into the cockpit of a plane or like, go into, I don't know, baggage area of like, in the back there where they,
I remember what it was like before 9/11.
Yeah, no, I don't, not that we need to get into that, but yeah, like obviously there's a lot more security in place now, but.
Yeah, no, the airport is a really good metaphor. So my question now is, since we're going to be talking about LLMs, how does that come into play? Because when I think of an LLM, it's either like a third-party service or a model you're running on your computer is not necessarily a big piece of like your company's infra. So how does this fit into the tool?
Yeah, so there's different tiers of the tool. So like I said, it's an open source product, and I'll drop a link to Pomerium on GitHub here.
Yeah, and you can share your screen too if you want to show
Yeah,
anything.
I'll do that.
Bounce around the docs or something.
Yeah, cool. Give me one sec here. I'm just on my personal computer because that's where I have some of this set up for today. But yeah, let me just go ahead and share my screen.
Was it your idea to build out an LLM example, or did they ask you to do that?
I had this idea, but the CEO, Bobby, had already done something similar with another product I was telling you about before the stream, Open Web UI. So we can look at that too. But let me go to here. Okay. So, all right, let me just open this up here. So let's go to github.com and then just go to /Pomerium. Okay, there you can see I already improved the docs, but that's not what I meant to show. That was just autocomplete in action. But yeah, so it's on GitHub.
Bump it up.
These are all the opens. Yeah. So there's a few projects on here. The desktop client is an Electron app you can use as well. But I just kind of wanted to link to the actual core project. I'll drop this in the chat. And I don't know if you want to drop it in your own chat because I think I only have access to Twitch. Cool. Yeah. So essentially, Bobby, the CEO, like I said, he's been in the security space for quite a while. He actually had another company acquired. The name is escaping me, but big fan of open source. So Pomerium is open source, but it's open core. So open core, if you've never heard that term, is like the core of the product is open source. You can literally fork this, go use it. Our docs have sections on just how to use Pomerium open source, and you can secure, whether it's like you're a hobbyist, you can secure your stuff on your internal network in, at home, but you can also use this, like on AWS or Azure or wherever. And then obviously it's a company. We want to make money. So there is an enterprise tier, which is based off of the core. And there's, other things that we consider people would pay for. So that's the enterprise.
Yeah, I think most databases like MongoDB, Cassandra, they're all open core.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular model. And the other thing is we have a new thing called Pomerium Zero, and I'll show you this after once we kind of start configuring some stuff. But I'll just kind of explain real quickly the architecture to the best of my knowledge so far. But basically, let's see here. You have you have a control plane. So the control plane is where you define all your policies and stuff, and where you decide, yeah, it's basically to configure the policies. And we have a self-managed version, which is the open source. You literally just write YAML files, write the policies and stuff. But we also have a newer product. I think it launched in June when we got our 13+ million Series A funding. But Pomerium Zero is a managed control plane. And so what that is it's just like you have access to a UI where you can actually go configure these policies. It's just a nicer experience. But the control plane, when it's actually running, is not running in the cloud. It's still wherever you have Pomerium installed. So like when you update your policies in like Pomerium Zero, or you add new routes and stuff, which we'll look at all this stuff. Basically, that will get cached, and that'll be running literally in your network. And this ties into, I mentioned latency at the beginning. Because Pomerium is literally where your network is, like your internal apps, there's like practically no latency because it's literally on the same network. It's not like if I were to go to some cloud service, so I go to log in, I try to access one of my resources, it's going to go like, okay, there's this, cloud version of like potentially something like Pomerium, but it's going to have to go to that other server, then come back once it's said, okay, you're all good to go. And so there's some latency there. So basically, by having Pomerium literally at the layer 7 in front of your internal network of apps, there's like practically no latency. And all these policies that I was just mentioning that you define on the control plane, they just get cached. So like,
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
We got some questions from Fuzzy, and then I have a question too. So open source, open core is a 2025 way of saying shareware and payware. That's funny.
Looking forward to your WinRAR license, Fuzzy.
So he's asking about Sidecar. If I remember correctly, a Sidecar was related to Envoy and Istio and crap like that I used to hear about on podcasts all the time. I never understood.
So I'm still pretty fresh, but basically Envoy is what we use.
Hey, I'm right.
Yeah, as the reverse proxy. That's a big chunk, like open source for the win, obviously. I'm not sure if we're using traffic anywhere, Fuzzy, but and again, I'm literally on day 13 and a half, so like there's some minimal, there's some stuff I definitely have to wrap up on.
Yeah,
but
we're
like
talking high level. But
but
before
essentially,
you keep going, finish your thought. Then I have my question, but finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Envoy is like a big chunk of it, which is like handling all the reverse proxy stuff. We have our customizations and stuff, but that's kind of like the core of the reverse proxy because it's a pretty battle tested reverse proxy from what I've understood.
Yeah, it's really, really popular open source library. So the reason why I wanted to stop you is because a couple times now you've referred to the 7 layers, which would be good to define because that's something that I know very little about. I know what you're alluding to, but it's super, super confusing. And this is one of the things that I used to see videos about when I was learning to code, and there'd be like, here's a 4-hour tutorial explaining all 7 layers of networking. And I'm like, what the crap? There's also like different versions with not with like 5 layers or something. But yeah, so explain that.
So again, I'm newer to this part of things, but think of layer 7 as like, I guess, the top layer. So this is like literally you make a web request, like you're going to be kind of at the application level, I believe.
The browser.
So
like the browser.
Yeah, like so like if I say go to, like nickit.co/API, that from what I've understood, is that's layer 7. So like, and the reason why we're at layer 7 is because we can make all kinds of decisions before you even hit your internal network, right? So like, you know, you could say like, okay, he hit /API. Again, those policy checks happen. You know, maybe we're modifying headers to send, you know. So, but that's in plain English. I can find a French one for you too, if you want, Fuzzy. But like I was saying before, I'd have to go through all this. This is stuff I actually have to read up on,
Yeah,
but
and you don't need to define all 7 layers, but just kind of like conceptually,
yeah,
it's about how close you get to the actual data going through the
yeah,
network, I think.
yeah. And I'm not even sure if this is actually the right thing here, but basically think of more like layer 7 as like literally like what you would see as an app, you know, like the actual like URL that's happening. You can like, it starts there, and something like that's lower at like layer 3, like the VPN, is like maybe at the IP address level. Again, I've got a
Well, what's
don't quote
funny
me
is
on that.
with being web developers, we almost exist only at the top layer because all these things have been
Yeah,
abstracted and they're built on protocols that were invented by the US government in white papers 40 years ago, you know?
yeah. And I can give a concrete example. Like when I worked at Netlify, I was on the frameworks team, and so like say you have a request that comes in, you know, and there's like we have our CDN and stuff, and like the CDN, you know, you might have a cache hit or miss and stuff, but like the initial request doesn't have that information, and then once the request ends up being in the internal network, you know, headers are being modified, and then you get a response returned and stuff, you know. So there's manipulations you can do when you're at that level. Whereas if you're just at like the IP level, you can still do some stuff, but it's at that point, it's you can't handle like a request really, like in terms of like what were they requesting, what are the headers, like at least I don't think you can. This is literally a weak point for me right now. So this is something I'm definitely going to ramp up on. But that's
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
that
my
was a good
understanding.
explanation, yeah. Cool.
But yeah, but no, it's good questions though. So yeah, so it's a core, open core, and literally go take a peek at it. I'm working on the docs right now. If anybody's interested in helping working on the docs, happy to meet up with you and chat about it. But for me, this is exciting to me because I've been working in open source since 2020, like literally being paid to, and it's kind of cool
Mhm.
that I'm working again at another company that has open source on the brain. At least for me, I find that cool.
Yeah,
So
no, it's great. Super great.
uh, and we kind of got derailed a bit, not in a bad way, but like going on that whole tangent about all that stuff, is getting back to what you were asking about, like LLMs and securing them. Like
Right, yeah.
what's the deal here? So like the cool thing about something like Pomerium is I can use it as a hobbyist or like a small company and still really benefit from it. Or you could be a large enterprise. So in my case, I have, for example, I created a GitHub Copilot extension, and I have this template. So like I did a talk with the GitHub Open Source Hour in December, but I was like, after talking to you and my friend, an old coworker, John, was, you know, talks about Ollama all the time. I was like, I got Ollama up and running on my Mac, and then I was like curious. I was like, could I actually create a GitHub Copilot extension that talks to Ollama? So that was kind of what I did recently, and let me go find that on
I got
Dev2.
it. I got it.
Okay, cool, nice. So yeah, so I created this blog post about it, and there's a project that's on my GitHub, and I got it working. The thing with and we'll go through how to set up a GitHub Copilot extension, because prior to me creating my template, I had done this live stream with a couple people from GitHub when I was working at Open Source, and I made an open source Copilot extension. And I now know how you build one, obviously, but it's a few things. There's like an actual web app that's running. That's like the core of like a GitHub app in general.
Mhm.
And so like to use Copilot, at least like the universal one where you can use it on like github.com, Visual Studio Code, etc. You have to create a GitHub app. And so you have to have a deployable site for that to work. So I basically use the port forwarding, and we'll go show this shortly, but basically you have this app running in GitHub as a GitHub app. And then when you make requests in Copilot, you're going to end up hitting that actual GitHub app. And that's like kind of how it all works. And so you make requests. So like you ask a question, it's going to go through the web app you made, which is installed in GitHub, in the GitHub app. And then you'll get answers that way. And so that's great. And so working locally, I have like I use the port forwarding in VS Code to do that so that I can actually expose my local to the internet. And then I was like, okay, I've got Ollama, and I got that running. And the reason why it worked in my setup was because even though my local web app, which is the GitHub app, was running locally, it was exposed to the internet, but the local web app could actually hit Ollama because it was local. So, and it works. And I'll show you that in a minute. So my next thought was, and this was like after interviewing with Pomerium, and I was like, I could probably secure my Ollama so that like it can be accessible from outside of my like internal network which is my internet connection with my router. And then I would be able to use Ollama in a Copilot extension wherever I am on the planet, and that was kind of the idea. And I haven't done that yet. So that's kind of what we were going to look at today. And the other thing too is we could also look at securing something called Open Web UI, which is like a pretty nice front end that allows you to use local models. And we could do the same thing. So I guess let's go through the Copilot extension first, and then I can show you the Pomerium stuff. And then we can see if we can secure, well, I'm pretty confident we can secure the Ollama API endpoint. The thing I'm wondering about is I'm not sure about the authentication once it's running in the Copilot extension, but we'll see. So all that says, let's get busy. All right. So
yeah, I've gone super deep on Ollama because I tried out a whole bunch of different things for running local models for auto show, because like Ollama uses Llama CPP under the hood. So I tried that out, and I tried the Node version of that, Node Llama CPP. And then I found that Ollama really had it was at a nice level of abstraction where it really simplified a lot of stuff while still giving you pretty much all the power of those tools.
Yeah, cool. So I think what I'll do is I'll just start running the Copilot extension, and then I'll explain how it works, and then I'll show you where Ollama comes in and stuff. So the first thing you want to do is you need to, let's just get the app running. It's been a minute here. Okay, I think I switched node. Okay, that's all up to date. All right, so I'm using Hano.js for this. So like Hano is pretty solid. So I just decided to go with that. But like the web app you build for a Copilot extension can literally be in any language or any framework, as long as it can serve requests. That's all that matters. That said, they have a preview SDK that you can just makes it easier to do stuff in Copilot extensions. That it's currently only it's written in JavaScript right now, so it only works in JavaScript and TypeScript. But this stuff is open source. You could fork it and write the same thing in Go if you wanted, or maybe GitHub will get to that at some point. But that's why I have it written in TypeScript, just so I can leverage those things, and we'll go through all that. But the first thing to do is literally get your app running. So I'm just going to do npm run dev, and so this is going to run a few things here. So Ollama is running. If we go, it's opening up in the wrong browser. Hold on a sec. Let's go to an actual browser on my screen. So this is just Ollama installed on my computer. This has nothing to do with the Copilot extension, but that's just to show that it's running the endpoint. And I can't zoom in this, but I have a little Ollama guy in my menu bar up top there. Okay. And also there's a web app running on localhost 3000. So let's come over here. and you can say, welcome to the Ollama powered Copilot extension. So the app is running, but we're not in Copilot mode yet. So the first things I need to do is, and you don't have to use VS Code for this. It's just I'm in VS Code, so I'm going to just leverage it. But they have a whole ports section in one of their panels, so you can actually do port forwarding. And
I did
what I
not
do,
really know
okay,
this. Like, I kind of
okay.
vaguely knew that this was possible. I've never done this before.
Yeah, so there's other options, and I mentioned in my blog post, you can use Cloudflare, you could use ngrok, like
Yeah, and Grok I'm familiar with. I use that at
yeah,
StepZone, yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's literally the same thing. You're just exposing a locally running app on the internet. So
Yeah,
however you
you
want to do
become the
it.
Linux server.
So I'm in VS Code, so I'm just going to leverage that they have it out of the box. So the only thing to note is you can see here the visibility of it is private at the moment. You have to switch it to public. So, and I
Zero
mentioned
trust
all
right
this in the
there.
documentation. Yeah. Definitely principle of least privilege for the win. Visibility here. So I'm going to set it public. I can't zoom that in, unfortunately, the menu.
This
So
is
it's
fine.
public now. So now if I go to this port, sorry, if I go to this website, you're going to see, I can't zoom in the browser bar, but it's literally that URL from Microsoft now that's up here. So
Right.
at this point, and actually I'll drop it in the chat if anybody wants to go hit that, if you want to go DDoS my computer. So that's running. That's my Hano.js GitHub web app running right now that you can access. And this is required. So we're going to go to GitHub now. And let's go to your developer settings. Where is it? Let me just zoom out for a sec here. I always zoom in for live streams, but there we go. Okay, so you need to create a GitHub app. Now, I already have one configured. And the instructions to do this are in the open source project, and it's also in my blog post. So I'm not going to create a new one. I'm just going to show you what I had set for it. So basically, security again here. Let's go. I'm too secure. All right. So there's some basic information here. So you just, you give the name, whatever you want to call it. The homepage URL here, it doesn't have to be this because this isn't live yet. But like, say you had a product homepage, you could put that there. And essentially, right now, I'm just using this URL, which just takes me to the, welcome to the Ollama Copilot powered extension. This here is not required for a GitHub app that is for Copilot extension. But when I was talking to the GitHub people on the live stream, on my live stream back in early December, they said you still have to fill it out right now, even though it's not used. This is something in the future, like UX wise, are just going to not make it required if you're doing a GitHub if you're doing a GitHub app for a Copilot extension. The other things you don't need, you just, if it's checked off, uncheck active for the webhook, and then you save your changes. And the other things to note about this is your permissions. So we keep talking about security and stuff. So you do want to have principle of least privilege here. So only give what you absolutely need. So I don't need to access repositories or org permissions. I only need to set account permissions. And let's just zoom this in here. Maybe that's a little too zoomy. So there's only two things I need potentially. One you absolutely need is read-only access to Copilot chat to make your extension actually be able to work. The other one, this is something newer, and I use this in my extension, but this is what having the Copilot or editor context, what this gives you is you can get access to, like, if I drag a file into Copilot chat, I can actually access that file in my own extension. Prior to a few months ago, I don't think you could do that. So these are literally the only two permissions I have set. And then you just save that. And let's just go back to the top here. And then we'll go to the Copilot settings. So initially, when I did my first stream with the GitHub people, there wasn't two options here. There wasn't three options. There was only disabled or agent. They have a new one called Skilled Set. I haven't used it yet, but for our purposes, for a Copilot extension, right now we just set it to agent. And
Those names
then
are
you
so
don't.
confusing. They all sound like I would have no idea what the relationship between those three names are just based on hearing them.
Cool, cool. And then you have a URL here, and this is the URL that I've exposed with the port forwarding, and it's just the root URL. So just slash. And this is going to be the endpoint when you ask a question in Copilot chat for your extension, which I'll show you in a second. It's going to post to this endpoint. And so that's why that's there. And then you can also add some inference description. This is just saying what it is and what it does. Initially, I didn't have anything in here, but you can put something in there. And that's pretty much all you need to do in terms of configuring a GitHub app for Copilot extension. And then after that, I've already done this, but you would install the app and then it's installed. And the only other thing I've done right now is you can expose a GitHub app or a Copilot extension to like everybody. For the time being, I've just made it accessible only to my account just because I was just testing out stuff. But if you did actually say like, okay, I'm ready to ship this, you just allow it to be accessible to anybody. And then there would be a public page for it where people could just go and install it.
Are they all hitting your
That's,
machine then every time they use it?
well, if I were to actually deploy this, I would deploy it in some cloud service probably. Like it,
Gotcha. Okay, I see. Yeah.
but like, which gets back to my point why it's only for me right now is because I know it's
Yeah,
running
okay.
on my local.
That makes
So
sense. Yeah.
so we have everything running there now, which is great. Now let's go to, I've got to re-enable Copilot chat because I had to disable it for work. I just got to zoom out for a second here. Copilot.
Your screen is so massive.
Yeah, I got used to it. Like I used to have a 27-inch monitor and that's all I would use. And like I got used to like switching screens and stuff. And then, but doing web development when you're building stuff in UI, I don't know. I just tried it and I kind of just got used to it. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and enable Copilot again. Okay. Now let's zoom in again. All right. I think I have to restart the extension. Is that it? Should be okay now. Copilot. Okay, yeah, there it is. I'm not sure why my shortcut isn't working, but anyways, we've got the chat here now. And so you were asking before about Copilot. So you can choose the models. So again, I can't zoom in the little menu here, but you have access to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. You get GPT-4o, O1 Preview, and O1 Mini. And so let's just ask Copilot something like, what is a B tree? So we're not using my Copilot extension yet here. So Copilot's thinking, what can I do? And it gives you an answer. Okay, great. Awesome. I didn't specify a language. This looks like it's in Python, I think.
Yeah, it usually writes Python by default unless you tell it otherwise. Data scientists ruined it.
Yeah. Cool. So, all right. So we got something running there. Okay, great. I'm just wondering why the chat isn't. There we go. There's the side chat. Okay. So if you're using a Copilot extension, you have to do this. So if you do @ you're going to see there's all these Copilot extensions I have access to. I installed a few to just test out stuff originally. Like this Blackbeard agent is one that GitHub lets you install to try out. Basically answers like a pirate.
I was gonna say that's what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah. So the one thing to know about using a Copilot extension is you can't do something like, hey, Ollama pilot or whatever and ask a question. It's not going to use your Copilot extension. You always have to do at the beginning. And then so we have Ollama Copilot. And I'm going to say, explain, show me a Merkle tree in, I don't know, Go, in Golang.
So
So I'm
before
going to
you
go
built
ahead.
your own Copilot extension, was there any that you were already using?
Extensions, not really, because I didn't know it was a thing until I actually built one.
Yeah, neither
Uh,
I didn't know it was a thing until you started talking about it.
yeah, so there's actually not. I honestly haven't seen a lot of content around it yet. I feel like I got in early with some content on this,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna go ahead and just for 1 second here, we're gonna ask a question. So watch it be because it's a demo. It's gonna just conk out, but this should technically be hitting my Ollama on my computer right now, and you're gonna see it's explaining. It didn't answer my question. I don't know why, but anyways, this is actually running now. So I think it's because I included the code snippet, maybe, or the file. But I do want to show you. I'm gonna stop the web server for a sec, and I'm gonna switch to debug mode. So I'm gonna just use the JavaScript debug terminal, and I'm gonna start it up again. And so now we have the debugger running, and you can see here that this is the code running now. It started up the app. So I had a breakpoint here when my when my Copilot extension starts. I'm just gonna run F5 and it's up and running. And now I'm gonna show you when I actually ask a question now. So let's come up here and this will explain the pieces of what happens in a Copilot extension. So let's do a new conversation and I'm gonna get rid of this file, or we could use that file. Or let's open up another file. Maybe let's do utils. Okay, and I'm just gonna say, can you improve this code? So just to reiterate, I'm running a web app on my local machine, which is registered in a GitHub app, which is going to handle requests from the Copilot chat that I'm sending here right now. So I'm going to press enter, and all of a sudden, I'm in the post here, and this is actually my Copilot extension running now. So I'll just run through a few things here. I'm just going to, it's going to time out because I've paused it, but basically, I'll let this run. So there's a few things we can do, and I'm leveraging the Copilot SDK for extensions right now. I can verify and parse the request. These are just like a security check in place. Like, is this really a valid payload? GitHub has headers and stuff that they inject and stuff. So I do a few checks, and then, for example, if there's no token for me, then I can throw an error and stuff. But otherwise, I'm just gonna let it run. And then you're going to see here, if I just do F10, I asked a prompt, and you can see here I have the whole payload from, and maybe it's better if I open it up in here. So if we do payload, and then all of a sudden you can see this is everything that's coming from the Copilot UI that, well, not the UI, but from Copilot. And you can
Mhm.
see the messages in here, and then you can see like my message here, can you improve this code? You can also see references, which are like the files and stuff. So I have access to that utils file, etc. So, you know, we don't need to dwell on it too much, but basically a bunch of things. And then like I use that that file as a reference, and then I make an actual request to Ollama here. So where did that go? Yeah. So I'm passing into Ollama. So there's my base URL for Ollama, and this is the endpoint you hit in Ollama/API generate. And I'm actually choosing a model. I have a default one, which should be set to, I think, Code Llama. And then I'm passing in my prompt. And you can see I augmented the prompt here. There's my initial question, like, can you improve the code? And then I do some prompt engineering to say, like, if there's a file reference, and this only shows up if I actually reference the file, I just say what you need to do with it. And then I just let it run. So just to reiterate, we're in Copilot. We asked a question, it hit my Copilot extension, and then in my Copilot extension, it asked Ollama something. It timed out with a server error because I was debugging, but I'm going to run it again. And let's just let it run. and it should answer. Okay, it's a demo, so I probably, whatever. But essentially, I've been able to connect to it. Let me maybe just break the debugger. Let's try that again. Let's use utils. So let's hide this one and let's add a new file, and we'll say utils. Can you improve the code in this file? This is a very terrible question to ask because it's too generic, but just for the sake of demo. Okay. Okay, it's answering, but it's not what I want. But the main point is,
You get the idea. Text is coming back.
yeah, exactly. So we have this Ollama endpoint right now, which is over here, which was localhost 1
Yeah, honestly,
1 3.
there's probably better things than Code Llama at this point because I think that's based on Llama 2, which wasn't really that great of a model compared to what we're used to now.
Yeah, I have others. Like if I do here Ollama list, I have these ones installed right now. So, including DeepSeek, but there could be a
Yeah,
better one,
R1 would
or
probably give you the best output out of
yeah.
those.
So and I don't have this in my extension right now, but I could make it pick the model you want to use and stuff,
Right.
But so anyway, so this does work, even though it's still a work in progress. But the main thing I wanted to do is how can I secure this? So let's talk Pomerium now. So if I come back here, I have Ollama running on here. And I'm just going to open up another tab. I'm going to go to pomerium.com. I'm using what I mentioned before, which is called Pomerium Zero. And essentially, that is the managed control plane. So I have this UI where I can create policies and routes. Once I save them, it will update the, at the actual, where the access plane is running, like where the identity aware proxy is actually running, which is on my local right now in front of these things. So there's a few things. We have to have this verify endpoint. So this ties in.
Zoom in a bit more.
Yeah. And I don't think I'm running it. Oh, I might be on the wrong one too. Let's see here. Home cluster. That's right. Okay. Let me just
This
make
one you needed
sure.
to zoom in on.
Yeah. Sorry. There's, I think, some responsive issues on the app, but let me zoom in here.
Okay.
Let's go
Yeah,
bigger.
that's good. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's a little too big. Okay, so we have this. Oh, this is one endpoint I made, but we're gonna create a route. But I want to come over to here for a sec. Where was it? Yeah, I just want to check in Docker. So okay, I'm running web UI, which is that other project I told you. But I have this compose YAML file. It's gonna show my secrets in there right now, so I'm not gonna show it. But basically, it's a Docker compose file that allows you to run Pomerium. So I'm gonna do Docker compose up. So I just have an alias du. So now it's
Yeah,
gonna
I
say,
created an account actually before we did the stream just so I can kind of see what it was. And it starts off by giving you different options like Linux or Docker Compose to install it. And so I just did the Docker Compose. That's what I knew how to do. So that's how I spun up the initial thing as well.
yeah, exactly. So I'm logged in right now, and I'm using. There's a identity provider available to you through Pomerium. Like if you don't want to use something else or you're just getting started. So just for demo purposes and even for my own usage right now, that's what I'm using. So I'm already logged in, and you can see I'm verified, and there's some claims here. Let's close that, and we want to create a new route. So let's just create a custom route, and I'll just call it Ollama API. And let me just
So I saw one of the
disable.
options there was node route. Why wouldn't you do that since you're using Hono?
Because right now I'm not securing the GitHub Copilot web app. I'm actually securing Ollama.
Okay, that makes sense. Gotcha.
Let me just disable 1Password for a bit. just so it's not popping up like my family stuff here. It keeps popping up names. All right, I'll just turn it off temporarily. All right, cool. All right, let's get back to it. So whatever, you can put a description. It's not necessary. You don't need to put a logo either. The important thing is, let's create, like, what do we want to hit for Ollama? So we'll just call it Ollama. And it's going to autocomplete with like the rest of the URL, which is, there's this URL that I have access to. It's just an auto-generated one. I don't have to worry about like creating certificates or anything. I just have a wildcard certificate for this massive giraffe subdomain of Pomerium. So that's what I'm going to call the endpoint. And then this is what you actually want to go to. So we want to hit HTTP localhost, and then what is it, 11434 or 34?
343, I think. Don't quote me on that though.
Yeah, I'll just go check real quick. 434. Okay.
434. Yeah, I was wrong.
Okay, cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and save the route. So now we have this route, and this is literally, and to give a bit more context. So I'm on my home network. I had to open up a port on my router. So I have port 443 open, and this is how Pomerium is able to run on my local network. If you were to deploy this, you know, in some cloud-based area, you know, you probably wouldn't have to worry about that so much, or you would do it at that level, not at like a router level like I'm doing. So I have
real
this.
Quick, do you mean a router like your home internet router, or the
Yeah,
router
so
in
because
your code?
no, sorry,
Yeah.
the home router, because like right now I'm running this all locally, and I want to expose my local stuff onto the internet. So I've set port forwarding for 443 on my router, and that's how I'm able to run this.
Interesting.
Cool.
I
So
wouldn't
if
even be able to do that because where I live, we're in like a mesh network. We all have access to like one thing, so I don't even have access to my router.
Gotcha. Okay, so I've actually secured my Ollama endpoint now, because like if I go to it, this is a valid URL, but it's telling me it's forbidden. That's a good thing. So let's go ahead and let's go to policies, and let's just create a new one.
This does seem very, very simple for a security tool. This is a pretty clean dashboard and onboarding flow, I gotta say.
Thanks. Yeah, I think there's still some improvements we can do, but that's great feedback. So let's just call this Ollama access. Like, you can literally call this whatever you want. I'm gonna make this optional, because this is optional in the sense that like I can apply it to certain routes. If I put enforced, it'll end up being like a global policy, and that's not what we want. And I'm gonna add an allow block, and I'm just gonna say, and this is just like, you know, classic and or stuff. And I'm gonna say domain is, and I'm just gonna put nikiT.co, which is my email in my claims that you saw in my login access there. So I'm gonna save that policy. And now I can use this, and you can see it says it's unassigned. So let's go to a route. Let's go back here to the Ollama one, and let's just go ahead and edit it. And I'm going to add a policy here now. And I'm just going to say Ollama access, and I'm going to save the route. Now, if I go here, and let's just double check again. So I'm logged in, and I'm nikiT.co here right now. That's good. And let's come here. And okay, so it says the web server is down. Okay, so that's not the same error. So that means it's actually trying to hit my Ollama now, and I have access to it. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, so it says the web server is not returning connection. And it even tells you kind of see stuff like this. If you've ever used Cloudflare too, you'll see it's like, this is working, this is working. Upstream host is not. So there's something with Ollama. So let's make sure that I actually have it set correctly. Okay. Oh, local. I'm gonna literally copy paste the route URL just in
Sometimes
case.
you have to do like the 127.0.0.1 instead of localhost.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I know exactly what it is. I'm not using the IP. I need the IP, because remember, this is a networking thing at this point. So it needs to know where to go on my home network. Like localhost doesn't make sense when it comes in. So, so I'm going to get my IP address, and just give me one sec here. Let's go back to the routes. I have another route that already exists, so I'm just going to copy the IP address out of there. That's what it should be. And I ran into this before. This is something I constantly keep doing. I don't know what that means, but okay, so let's put this here and let's save that. Okay, and now let's go to it. Okay, it could be cached or something, maybe. Let's see here. Let me make sure that actually is working, that actual IP address. Okay, so that's me. It's not right. Why would it not like? I wonder if Ollama has to. Can you run Ollama without? Let's see here. Ollama run with IP address. Yeah, it binds to 127. So like, how do I? Okay, so at this point, this is not a Pomerium issue. This is me.
Just this is an Ollama host environment variable.
Okay, yeah. So 000 will give us the allow us to access it via the IP address too. So okay, let's do that, and then I guess
I went through a decent amount of this stuff because I had to get Ollama working in Docker and then speak to my Node app and Whisper. So I had this like whole crazy multi-Docker setup.
Okay.
And this is a lot of the stuff that I was hitting along the way.
Okay, so if I refresh this now, okay, Ollama is running. So that's great. So via the IP address, it's working now. So if we come here, this should work. Okay, so this already is pretty cool because one, we haven't done too much to do this. I have Ollama running on my local host. We just added that environment variable to just say like, allow me to use Ollama with my IP address. And then if we go back into Pomerium, all we had to really do is add a route. So I chose Ollama, and I basically put in my IP address with the port, and that allows me to securely access Ollama now from anywhere.
So can someone type in that same, like if they knew your IP address, is this link like live? Can anyone go to it? Or is it because it's coming from your IP, it actually is kind of verifying you that way?
Well, the thing is, like my IP address that's there right now, that's not a publicly accessible internet address. That's like in my internal network here. So like, even if you went to that, if anything, it would probably like maybe your local has the similar IP address, but it wouldn't work. So, and that's where this gets back to, at least from my understanding so far, working with the product, is Pomerium is running on my local host. This gets back to what I was saying about the latency and how it's right in front of your internal network. Obviously, it's my home computer right now, but it's the same idea. So Pomerium is literally, part of it is the reverse proxy where it goes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the reverse proxy part. Okay, yeah, no, this makes sense now. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can go to this, actually go to that URL. I'll actually drop it.
Put it in the private chat so I can copy paste it.
Yeah, cool. I mean, if anybody sees it on screen anyways, they can paste it, but I'm not too stressed out about it. So go ahead to that site, and you should get a 503. Yeah.
Tells me to log into Pomerium.
Actually, go ahead and share your screen for a sec. So this is great. So
yeah, so first it gave me a login screen.
Yeah, let's do that again. I'll just get you to log out again real quick, and then we'll
yeah, let's do.
Excuse me. Okay, and then just go hit the URL again. Okay, so you're trying to access, just to make it crystal clear, you're trying to access my Ollama that I've exposed to the internet. You get gated by a login because it's like, who the heck is this? And this gets back to the whole thing about being like, thinking about the VPN. The VPN is like, once you're in the network, you're good. But like, actually, no, wait, forget what I was saying there. at this point, it's like secured on the internet. Like nobody can access this unless you have unless you're on my email domain, nickit.co. So if you go ahead and log in,
Pomerium is kind of doing the identity layer, basically.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to, like I said, you can use GitHub, Google, your own, like Okta, whatever. Okay, so this is great. Can you paste in the chat what your email is that you use to sign up? Because I'm gonna change the policy. And are you cool with me showing it on the screen? Or
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's dev at ajcweb.dev.
Okay, here I'll present, share screen. Okay, so let's go back to, I'm in Pomerium Zero, like I said, but if you're just using the open core, you can literally do what I'm doing here. It's just you would be doing this in a YAML file. Right. And if you're using the enterprise version, there's like a souped up version of this with lots of other goodies. But for this, it's just easier to show with Zero. And it's pretty nice that I got set up pretty quickly. So, okay, so we've got a policy already. So I'm going to go to my Ollama access policy. I'm going to go ahead and edit it. And you can see here, so domain is nickit.co, and I'm going to add not a and, let's do a or. And domain is, or we could just say email. I'm not even going to do domain. I'm going to be very specific. Anybody in my domain or you. Let's go ahead and save that. Now, if you go back to the endpoint and refresh it, you'll probably still be denied.
Ayo, no, you got it. Nope.
Okay, there you go. Okay, cool. So now, like, just to show this, like, I'm gonna come to the route again real quick, and I'm gonna edit it, and I'm gonna remove that policy, and I'm gonna save it. Try accessing it again.
Yep.
Boom. Yeah. All right. So this is pretty cool, I think, you know? So let's put that policy back on, and I'll just go ahead and save it. And so what's happening there is I updated the policy to add you to it. That policy is being managed in this managed control plane, which is, think of it as the UI for now. But when I updated that policy, what it did was it invalidated the cache of that policy. It invalidated it, and then it updated that cache policy, and then that's what's running immediately after that. And this gets back to, like I was saying, Pomerium is running in front of your literal internal network. Like I said, in my case, my home network, but the cache policy is there in place. So the latency is very minimal because you're in the same network. You know, I'm sure there is some latency to doing this check, but it's like, it's really minimal. We're talking like milliseconds, I think. So anyways, this is just, I think, really cool, like that you can just do this so quickly. And like a cool thing too about this is like, you can literally start securing anything. Like say you're a small company and you're just getting started, you can already improve your security posture by just putting this in place. You know what I mean? Like even if your app doesn't have single sign-on or anything yet, you know, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just email login and there's nothing fancy about it. You can put Pomerium in front of it, and then you could either use our identity provider, or you could bring in like GitHub or whatever. But basically, all of a sudden, you can start improving your security posture just by doing that. And then you can say like, okay, everybody has access to this stuff still, but now you're blocked right away unless, you know, you go through this first. So it's just kind of like a nice way to automatically improve security, even if you're not leveraging everything in it right away. So
could you show how to actually hit the endpoint and not just show that Ollama is running? Because I tried to do the API chat endpoint in my client, like Yak. I don't know if you know Yak. It's like Insomnia, and
yeah,
I'm not logged in through my email, so I hit their same thing.
Yeah. So this is the part about the Copilot extension where I'm not sure how it'll play out with, like, this is secured right now. Like it might take a little longer than just this stream today.
Okay. Yeah.
But let's see here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to come back to the Copilot extension, and I think it's right at the begin. Oh no, I have a config. Okay. So basically, I have this base URL. I'm not going to pass in an environment variable right now. I'm just going to go and hit here, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think I'm just going to get a 403. Like there's some part of the flow where I would have to be like handle the login. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure you could probably do that in Copilot extensions, because like I do it for like when I was using because I did one for open source, it asked you to log in via whatchamacallit, Supabase with GitHub. So, but let's just try this. If it doesn't work, it's all good. Just because like, but the main point of this right now, at least, is just to show that I've secured an internal resource. But now we're in uncharted waters, which is totally cool. That's okay. I got to restart it. So actually, let's get out of, yeah, we'll let it run there. Sure. Cool. And let's just let it run.
Yeah, I'm looking at
Okay.
the LLM guide that you had originally shared with me, and they give you a whole Docker Compose file where you kind of include all your authentication stuff.
Yeah, so all that stuff that's there, like I'm running that stuff in Docker right now in Pomerium Zero, and like I configured the routes in there, so it's pretty much doing what's in there. I don't know if you want to drop a link to that or not, but
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen here is I'm going to get a 403, and then we could probably just say like, let's do a new chat. We'll say, will this, or I'll ask a real question. How do you do a bubble sort? All right. Okay, now let's see here. Okay, so it's still going to come into the Copilot extension. Where it's probably going to die is when it tries to make the request to Ollama. So let's go down there. Where is it? Ollama, where are you at? Where? Ollama. Okay. Oh yeah, here it is. There.
You should just go /API.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. I'm being not lazy. I'm being inefficient. All right. I'm gonna go ahead. It's gonna ask the question. It's hitting the endpoint as it should. This is my GitHub web app running right now, and then we're gonna get to the Ollama, and this I'm pretty sure is gonna fail. So it's probably gonna end up in here. Okay, error parsing Ollama response. Sure. Why didn't it fall in there? Oh yeah, no, that's this actual error. So yeah, why didn't it hit there? Let me do it again. But it's clearly failing because it can't hit that. It should give a 403, but why is it? Where are we at? I think it's just gonna die. It's gonna try. I would have expected it to fail faster, but I think what we can do is what I did with open source was like if the response fails, and oh, you know what it is? I have to put it in a try catch probably. Oh no, it's in a try catch already. Oh, it's over here. It should land. Sorry. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, yeah. So this is expected. We get an error, and the error is what is the cause? Okay, yeah, unexpected token. So it's JSON returning a web page, which is the 403. Like if we look at that, it's
Yeah, that's what I
I'm
got
positive.
in Yak. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we could do is we could try this. We know that it failed. I'm just gonna assume it's always the same error right now, and then we could say, I'm gonna just disconnect here for a second. So you can see this error here. That's a native Copilot UI error. And that's based, that's created by this helper function that's in the SDK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I have to do a stream.write. No, what do I have to do? C.text create. Is this it? Here, hold on a sec. Where's the stream? Basically, what I'm going to do is I know it's going to fail because I'm not logged in. And then I'm going to ask in the prompt, in the Copilot chat, I'm going to say, you need to log into Pomerium. So that's what we're going to do. I just got to, where's the stream? Oh yeah, create done event, create text event. That's what I wanted. Thank you. Cool. So let's go back to the error, which is over here. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to say, you need to log into Pomerium. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so let's just forget the error handling for now. I'm just going to assume the happy error path, which is it's a 403 always. So let's go ahead and do a new chat. And let's just say, how do you do a bubble sort? And it should end up here. Okay, really? Oh, okay. You see, I got you need to log into Pomerium, which is good. I forgot to do the done event. Sorry. Let's do that again. Cool. Let's do this again. Okay, so it says you need to log into Pomerium. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL here. Think of this as like my identity provider. And I'm going to come back to the Copilot extension. That should show up as a URL. So let's do one more time. Okay, so it's going to say, I need to log into Pomerium now. So let's try that. I don't know. Okay, it says I'm verified. So there's probably something else I need to do maybe. And I'm not even sure in this case. There's probably something I need to do to somehow get like its session enabled in the Copilot chat. But I did log in, but I'm already logged in. So I don't think this is going to work. But yeah, it's still going to tell me. But this is what I did with open source when I was doing it. So at this point, it's more, I am logged in, but I need to get those credentials to somehow persist in the Copilot chat. So that's whatever. But we can do like that, those docs that you shared before. If we come back to Pomerium here, I already have this other one enabled. So I'm going to actually edit the policy. I'm going to remove this one. It's a bad name because it was only for Ollama, but I'm going to grant you access to it. And now if you go to this URL, I'll just drop it in the chat. Okay. And if you want to share your screen for a second.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of wrap it up here because I know we're at like an hour and a half about. Okay. So you have access to Open Web UI, which is running on my computer. Now, you don't have an account right now, but you're not going to be able to log in with Pomerium. But again, I just wanted to point out that I could probably, like in that doc, we could configure it with Pomerium. But just for the sake of time, we've already seen how we could secure an endpoint, which is really what I wanted to show you there. But we could look at the docs real quick, I guess. Again, secure.
Also, I saw there's GitHub repo for an Ollama Copilot extension that has like 500 stars. That was linked on the official Ollama, so you should check that out. You might have some ideas you can take.
Yeah, for sure. Like at the time, I didn't know that existed, and even if one did exist, I didn't really care. It was more for me to just try it. But
someone's asking if you guys host models. So no, because what we're doing is we're actually running the model on your machine.
Yeah, and to be clear, like we are showcasing LLMs here, but the main thing that's securing it right now is something called Pomerium. So we're not an AI company per se.
Mhm.
But if we go to if we could go to those docs, let me see here, Pomerium. Oh, you're still on my screen. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So if we go to docs, let's go to LLM. Yeah, I'll just double check here. There's probably something I might have missed, but so we have open. Yeah, so I'm passing the identity headers. Oh, actually, let me check if I am doing that. Open web, edit.
And they're asking about optimized models. So with Ollama, you can run whatever models essentially will fit on your machine.
Okay, so we want to pass identity headers. Cool. That's good. And yeah, we were looking more at the Copilot extension, but we can see here.
Yeah, so you're using Code Llama, which is a coding
Yeah,
offshoot of Llama, but you had DeepSeek in your list of models as well. This is what I really
yeah,
like about Ollama is that you don't have to just use Llama. It's any open source model that it can kind of interact with.
yeah. No, totally. Yeah. So so I've already configured it in Zero like we did. I've got a policy which is giving what we did, so it's access to my domain as well as your email. We have the route. We've already done all this,
Mhm.
so that's good. And then boom, 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 and then we set the policy. And then I think the thing is, I just need to create an account for you on my local. Uh, and it also says I might need to enable WebSockets. So let's go do that.
Yeah, I think you could do Ollama without streaming turned on.
Where was that? That's under timeouts. Okay. Allow WebSockets. Let's save that. Cool. Yeah, let's just, I guess I can create you an account. I actually haven't used Open Web UI that much. I created my own account. So let me
Yeah, and you can
log
just
in
log
here.
in on yours, just to kind of show it.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just enable one password again. Do, do, do. Yeah. And where to go? Oh yeah, I gotta go extensions, one password. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and log in. So now I'm logged in. I gotta
Doing
zoom out a
good.
bit. So I've basically secured, I'd have to see about creating an account for you, but basically this is running on my local machine. It's been secured by Pomerium. I've created a policy to only allow my domain and your email address to access this. So I'll literally drop this in chat and somebody tell me if they can hit this endpoint. I'm gonna guess no.
Yeah, so Ollama is agnostic to the models. So you can pull different models, and when you go to ollama.com, there's a whole models section.
Yeah.
So
I'm
you
actually
want
not
to set
sure if you can create multiple accounts for this. I've only started using Open Web UI recently, so
Mhm.
like I set up my admin account, but I don't know if you can add additional people. I think it might be just like a one person kind of thing because it's your local. But regardless, I can literally be anywhere in the world now as long as this is running. Like I'm gonna put this on a Raspberry Pi eventually. It's like right now it's on my laptop. But the cool thing about this is I have a secured local model running now that I can share with the family. So like obviously like we pay for other services too, but anybody in the house could use this, which is kind
Yeah,
of
no,
nice.
this is very cool. I want to get one of these set up for me as well, especially since
Yeah.
R1 came out, because it's the first actually open source model that is as good as the paid ones. Like really,
Yeah.
the llamas were decent, but
Yeah.
is it so? I think it is the full R1 unless you're using a distilled model.
Okay. Anyways, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. Obviously, I work here now, but I
No,
think
it's
this is,
super cool, dude.
and honestly, it doesn't take a lot of setup. So like the TLDR here is you go to pomerium.com, you create an account, you'll have access to Zero. I went with the Docker install. I ended up running Pomerium locally, but like I said, I'm going to put this on my Raspberry Pi. That gets up and running. You create some routes like we did over here. You know, you secure what you want to secure. And then all of a sudden, I have stuff available that's on my home network anywhere, including on my local. I mean, like obviously, like locally, I could just still go to the URL, like the IP, but it's probably more convenient to just go to the URL here. But
Yeah.
it's like literally super secure. And we saw how I changed the policy on the fly there, and the cache policy got invalidated, and you were automatically added, and then you could access these things. So it's pretty cool, I think. And
Yeah, and
you know,
real quick, just because someone's talking about this in the chat, now that I'm thinking about it, you definitely are not running the full one because when you showed your models in Ollama, it was about 4 gigs for R1, which is
oh yeah, it's
the
not
most.
the full.
Yeah, so that's the most distilled one. If you want to actually run the biggest R1, it's like over 600 billion parameters, and it takes like a terabyte of data.
Yeah, no, and the memory, like it was kind
Yeah.
of funny, but like
So yeah, no, so this
when
this
I
is a really good point, and this is still the issue with even the open source models that are good. You need like a ridiculous rig to run it.
yeah, for sure. And there are people that run ridiculous rigs to just have access to this, but uh, I guess to my point, it's more like even this is still helpful. Like obviously we're devs, so like we would want the more powerful ones, like the cloud-based ones,
Mhm.
um, but I still think it's pretty neat. And you know, we can secure literally anything at this point now. You know, so like you could run well whatever you want, honestly. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm still pretty new to the company, but like this is one of the things that kind of got me excited about it. You know, and even though I'm kind of newer to the security space, there's a lot. There's really a lot of cool shit we've been doing. So
Okay, since we're wrapping up, you should give the high level pitch just one more time for the new viewer.
yeah. So basically, Pomerium is using the zero trust security model. You can drop a link to it. If you go to pomerium.com, there's a zero trust in the docs there, Anthony. But
Yep.
essentially, the way it works is it's always verifying who you are, what action you're trying to take, you know, like what device you're on. I mean, you can figure what you want to here. And this is a big change from like traditional stuff like perimeter based security, like a VPN, where you log on to the VPN and then you're considered golden, and then you're considered trusted on the network. Whereas with zero trust, it doesn't mean no trust. It just means you only trust certain people based on who they are, their context, you know, and the context can be many things, device, you know, time of day. There's a bunch of things. So it's pretty neat. Yeah, if you want to check it out, sound stock, it's pomerium.com. And I'd encourage you to start off with Pomerium Zero. So if you just create an account, you can get set up with Pomerium Zero pretty quick. It's open core, like we mentioned at the beginning, so it is open source, but there's also an enterprise version, and there's Pomerium Zero as well. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for hanging, Soundstock. Cool.
Yeah, not every day we get random new viewers around, so super cool.
Nothing wrong with that.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for going over all of this with me. This is something that actually I do kind of have a use case for because
Okay.
I would like to be able to kind of expose my own models for like auto show. I don't know if it's really going to be that feasible, but I kind of want to just try it to like see what it would be like. And
Yeah.
this is one of the things I was going to have to solve is like how do I actually like once I get the Ollama on the internet, how do I secure the thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely going to check out that Ollama Copilot extension because one, I wasn't aware of it, but they probably figured out the flow for login or something. Anyways, but yeah, no, thanks again for having me on, man. It's always good hanging, and you know, we should hang out a little more often. I know we've both been pretty busy, so.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to swap streams again. Every other live stream is Trump saying plane crash caused, but that stream's much better. Yeah, we stay away from
Yeah.
politics here, so no worries on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Cool,
And
cool.
you're from
Well,
Canada. You don't even know what a president is, right?
I definitely do not want to talk about politics, so I'll just leave it at that.
Cool, man.
Cool, cool.
Great. Well, I think we can call it here. This was a really good stream.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right, later, everybody.